guys. Wow, our first podcast. Great to have you on here. I can't wait to see how this is going to work. So tell me what you guys been up to.
Well, great to be here, Kevin, and I'm super excited as well. As I'm sure Nat's going to say the same thing. I've just got back from holiday. I'm not going to rub it in with anybody, but I've got to just been away from the horrible
Come on, where have you
murky
been? I
grey.
know where you've been for the benefit of our audience. Where have you been to?
So I just popped over the pond for a week in Costa Rica and had an
Very
absolutely
nice.
very, very special time. It was really good. But so I'm back and ready to get back into the swing of things again.
Very nice. How about
Excellent.
you,
Well,
Natalia? Have you been anywhere nice? I bet a bit hard to top Costa Rica.
no, well, I don't know. I mean, like franchise exhibition in London. Does that beat Costa
Wow,
Rica?
yeah.
um, but I was thinking, actually, Happy Valentine's Day, everyone.
Oh yes, happy Valentine's
And
Day.
yeah, so I thought it would be great to kick off our first session just with exactly that, because I think I'm so passionate about franchising and the industry, and anyone who knows me knows that. And when we talk about franchising and things that people should consider when they're thinking about getting into franchising, we always talk about the fact that you need to be passionate about whatever business it is that you're going to choose to go into. And I thought it's a great topic to sort of kick us off with that.
I think
Great
great
idea. I love it.
subject,
I love it.
and and very very apt timing. I mean, I don't know whether you were on the Harvey Tuck show just yesterday, and Tammy Burdick from the States was talking about franchising being very much like a marriage. So it's very apt on Valentine's Day to be talking about making sure that you get the right fit, and it's something that you really love doing.
Just actually picking on that, I always think it's something that comes up again and again in conversations in terms of because a lot of people do compare that relationship, franchisor franchisee, to a marriage, to a personal relationship, and there is sort of a different camp of people who basically go, no, it's strictly business. We should not be describing it like that. And I think at the end of the day, it's going to be a personal view. But what do you guys think?
For me, it really resonated actually because yes, I think it's business, and you have strict, obviously legal framework for that, and clear expectations and so on. But I think the difference is that if you buy a car, you don't really spend huge, you only see the garage when something goes wrong, usually, or sort of every so often, as where this is much more of an ongoing relationship. And so, yes, there's a framework, but you've really got to get on. You've got to have shared values, a shared vision, and if you don't, then that's where you're going to have problems, right? And I think that's why the marriage analogy works so well, because all of that sounds very much like an ongoing relationship, right? If you don't have shared vision, you don't have shared values, you're heading in the different directions, you end up with a messy divorce, and you end up in court with your franchise, or certainly a lot of pain and frustration on both sides. So I'd not heard it described like that, and I thought that was actually really quite a helpful way, because they were talking about date your franchisees for a while, like don't rush that bit, the date for a while and kind of figure each other out, and where are you heading, and so you really understand each other before you sign on the dotted line, before you get married. So I really like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd absolutely agree with that. Somebody said to me a number of years ago that the ideal when you are recruiting a franchisee as a franchisor is that both parties are so comfortable with one another that once the ink on the agreement is dry, both parties put that into the bottom drawer, and it shouldn't be referred to ever again if that relationship is strong. and if the understanding of the relationship is strong as well. And it should only really come out when there are significant problems. And yeah, to your point, if you get it wrong, it will end up being a messy and difficult divorce. So yeah, I think it's really important that it is regarded as that. And you're right, Natalia. I think there is a business relationship. Of course, there is a business relationship there. That's part of isn't that part of the challenge, the nuance of the business format franchising relationship, that you've got this very, very personal relationship between franchisor and franchisee, but you've also got a legal relationship as well. But that's very similar to a marriage anyway.
It struck me as interesting actually when you were saying that. It's almost like a bigamous relationship, right? Because you've got multiple franchisees, and I could well imagine you could end up with situations where you appear to be favouring one franchisee over the other, or something like that. You've got to be fair, and or perhaps more like a family with children. I don't know, but something like that. You've got multiple relationships going on, and yeah, this is kind of even more complex than a marriage.
Yeah, yeah. I also going back to Natalia's original intro to the subject. It's again very similar to a personal relationship. The franchise that a franchisee chooses must have real passion for the business opportunity that they've got in front of them, not just the headline news which says make £100,000 a year in your first year, or whatever it is that's stated. It shouldn't, of course, the financial investment and the return on investment is absolutely key, but more than that, it has to be the love of the subject of the business that you're investing in.
And just going back to something you said a minute ago, Tim, I think what I find is sometimes people have the expectation that the relationship that you have at the beginning is going to stay that way forever. But the truth is, both franchisors and every franchisee will be going on their own journey. And we know, again, from business, from the industry experts in franchising, there is actually a very specific journey that every franchisee goes through and every franchisor goes through, and there's this sort of the curve of up and down. And if it's educating both franchisors and franchisees on the fact that this is normal. It will, you will have the highs, you will have the lows, you won't have them all at the same time. And it's being prepared for the fact that you might be, on very good terms to begin with. At some point you will probably fall out, but it's how you sort of deal with that, how you come out on the other side, and whether your relationship can be even stronger once you've come out on the other side, or whether actually you're going to have to part ways and say, you know what, maybe it's not working out, and we need to look at our options. But I find that those franchisors who understand the journey and understand where they are on that journey are better equipped to then deal with their franchisees, and to also understand what's happening and what sort of franchisees throw at them from that franchisee's perspective, depending on where that franchisee is at on their journey. Which again, I suppose, is very similar to any other relationship that it goes through
Yeah.
through cycles, stages.
Yeah, agreed. It's interesting you use the word educate your franchisees about this. There's a lot of talk, continual talk about educating franchisees at the beginning of the process, and there are so many pieces which the sector doesn't seem to educate franchisees, doesn't talk about that mean, I get the reason why, because it perhaps could, if not framed properly, could put some franchisees off. But it also, having not spoken about it, it it spooks the franchisees when these things happen. So I think there's an argument to again, it's very similar to getting into a marriage, having those upfront conversations, getting to know your partner really well makes it so much easier when challenges do come about. So I think educating the franchisees about what the future relationship is going to entail is really important. There was something else which I felt was also important, and that
Tim,
is,
can I just jump in on that point before you make the next point?
yeah, of course.
It really reminds me actually of we were really with when we got married beforehand. We had a couple do marriage preparation with us,
Oh wow.
which was brilliant because it really experienced couple. They'd done this with lots of other couples before, and they kind of cover off all sorts of these sort of issues, and this is like this education piece, right? And actually, I think it is a really good analogy. It'd be interesting to see whether franchisors really do that. And I remember one particular session where they gave us this list. It was like about 6 sessions or something like that. They gave us this list of about 150 things that people typically argue about. And we didn't realize that we thought we were supposed to talk about all of these before the next session. It wasn't really supposed to be that. And we really do, we start talking about these things thinking, no, when people don't argue, wait up, there's a humdinger of an argument, because all of these things are like trigger points, family traditions, what food do you like, toothpaste on, cap on the tooth, all the sort of classic things, little things, big things, all
Wow.
sorts of things. And it was really helpful actually, because it fleshes those things out and kind of makes you realize that, it's not all going to be roses, and actually, like, how do you deal with those arguments, and what are the typical things that you might argue about, right? And which is really, really. So I think one of the things people dramatically tend to underestimate is that when they marry a person, they marry into a family. There's an analogy there, right? So
Yeah,
and that comes with some baggage. People come with baggage. Where are you going to spend Christmas, right? That comes up at some point pretty soon, right?
yeah.
And then that leads right. So I think there's the more be interesting to dig into the analogy more and more, and I think it'd be quite insightful. I'm kind of feeling a men are from Mars, women are from Venus kind of book
Yeah.
for franchising coming on.
Oh, you're from that era as well, are you?
Yeah.
There are so many people who don't know men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Yeah, but yeah, I get it.
It's really helpful. Like, I'm such a offering solutions type. I'm a classic
Yeah,
engineer.
yeah. No, without getting into your your personal situation, have you found that helped certainly in the early
Oh,
stages?
massively, because I mean, I remember one of Sarah's friends said that they were having difficulties with their marriage, and they said, and I actually couldn't believe, it's an educated woman. She said, "Oh, if you have to work at it, it's not worth it." And I'm like, "Are you what?" It just didn't compute that, I think, oh my goodness, you as an educated lady have just hook, line, and sinker bought this sort of Hollywood myth about what marriage is like. That chemically after about 2 years, that kind of crazy feeling where you go a bit crazy, actually dies away, and you're kind of left with something that's actually better, but kind of more long lasting. And you have to work at it, right? The grass is greener where you water it, not the other side of the fence, right? So
Yeah,
the idea that you don't have to work at this relationship is just crazy. And similarly, I loved what you said, Natalia, that it changes over time. The franchisor might be going in a different direction. The franchisee is now becoming far more experienced. That relationship's going to change over time, and if it's going to work, both sides need to invest in it for it to really work. And probably need to be listened to as the franchisee has more ideas, and etc. etc.
But and it's absolutely spot on, Kevin, because I think that's the key. It's also understanding that actually you do have to invest in yourself, and you will continue to change, and therefore it's not just we can't expect just franchisees to change and grow and become better, but as a franchisor there's also, as a franchisor there is a need to grow and change and ensure that you are still being a good franchisor, the ethical franchisor, that you're
Yeah.
still doing the things right, and that you're looking after the things that you should be looking, that's your responsibility to look after. Because I always come back to a couple of these two specific phrases. I always say, it's all about alignment of expectations. Things go wrong
Yeah.
when those expectations are out of kilt, right? And for as long as the expectations are aligned, it'll continue working out. And the other one is that, the franchisor-franchisee relationship, like any relationship, for me, it's all about mutual benefit. Yeah, the moment you no longer have a mutual benefit, there will inevitably be something that one person is not going to be happy about it. So is that
Yeah.
mutual benefit and understanding that actually without franchisees, as a franchisor you will never be successful, because what kind of franchisor you are if you don't have any franchisees? But
Yeah.
without the franchisor, franchisees can't be successful, because the franchisor is the key to providing franchisees with the system, the model, the way it works.
Yeah.
So it's important that both sides understand and always continue to work on their, what their obligations and responsibilities are, but also on that those more intangible things. The culture, the values need to be aligned, as Tim said before.
Yeah, again, I couldn't agree more. This is about, and going back to your point, Kevin, just and it moves into what Natalia just said. It is about continually working on that relationship. It's not one-sided, but certainly a big part of the responsibility in that relationship is the franchisor in things like really good quality communication. They have a difficult job. Franchisors have a difficult job because they're dealing with a group, especially as their franchise grows, a disparate group of people, different personalities, different backgrounds, different values, and they have to align their communication with each of those individuals. Becomes more and more difficult the the bigger you become as a brand, but that communication, and then moving on from that, the continual development of really good quality support, and I use the word support with inverted commas and loosely because it is such a wide-ranging term for franchising, but support for franchisees is absolutely key to the success, the wider success of the franchise network. That said, it still goes. We still go back to the fundamental need to ensure that that dating session that we talked about earlier from Tammy Burdick between franchisor and franchisee is also probably one of the most important parts because of this whole success formula, because only when both parties are really, really comfortable with each other should a franchise agreement be put in, be mooted and talked about.
Yeah, and I think what you said about I think it's the old chestnut, isn't it? We said about communication. The more you've aligned, right, you've made sure that you've got that alignment to start with, the less divergent, the people will be, the types of people and so on. And therefore that communication is going to be easier because you know how to communicate with those person and what they like and so on. But I'm guessing that, obviously you're a franchisee, growth expert. I'm guessing that you see time and time again that people probably don't communicate enough in enough times, enough in advance, in multiple different ways.
So
Especially
yeah.
as the franchise grows, people tend to, my
Oh
experience, of people
yeah,
dramatically underestimate the amount of communication required. It's usually at least about
yeah.
3 or 4 times what people think they need to do.
Yeah, and in franchising, my experience is multiply that by at least two and maybe three, because it's not about the it's not necessarily about the forms of communication you use to get a message out. It's it's the time, it's the runway that especially when it's to
Yeah,
do with fundamental change, and it's drip feeding. It's using the FAC, the Franchise Advisory Council, well in advance of any changes, as thought processes start to come about in the franchisor's mind, to start getting that messaging right. Most importantly is over time, the franchisor collecting strong data to be able to go with the communication. So the franchisees feel by the time something really drops, they are absolutely captivated by what's coming. They believe in it, they understand it. But I've seen franchisors, and I understand it. I've been there myself. You come up with an idea, you develop the idea, you send a few communications out to your franchisees, and then it's launched. Runway period, takeoff 3 months, and then everything starts to go a bit
yeah,
up in the air and crashes, and people complain, people don't do things properly. But if you extend that period to a year, 18 months, my experience has been the success might have been slow to get to that point, but the success is by far much greater, and
interesting. Yeah,
the pain much lower. And it's all about communication.
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely second that. I mean, again, my experience, and it's really, do you know what I would say? It's always when it happens, it I always find it fascinating, and I always think, oh my God, what a missed opportunity. Because actually, my experience of the majority of sort of dispute type situations is that that could have been saved by better communication. So many develop from miscommunication, lack of communication, or communicating in the wrong way. And you just think, wow, it really didn't need to get this bad. It could have been resolved a lot sooner, a lot easier, a lot, with a lot less cost, if only. But that's when, my question to you actually, Tim, because obviously I know you've got experience in being both at sort of in the shoes of a franchisor as well. Can you ever get communication right? Like, can you get it right? Can you ever get it right? Or is it something that we're always going to be playing catch up with?
I would say, no matter how good you are, you're still playing catch up, especially in a franchise, because again, you've got so many different people, and something will be missed somewhere along the line. The challenge, in my view, is to be continuously aware of the weakness of communication, and always questioning yourself as a franchisor. What have we not done? What could we do better? What other tool can we use? Who haven't we told? And testing that all the time. We'll never ever get it. I don't believe we'll ever get it completely right. But the adage: if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. If you just keep carrying on using the same communication methodologies, and you still keep having explosions going off throughout your network, then you're missing a trick. You really are missing it. you know that something's not right. You should know that something's not right. You need to change, continually evolve the way you're communicating, and testing whether those explosions are reducing. You will never get rid of them completely, but the key is to continually question yourself, rather than, which is a trait within the sector, of blaming the other side for not reading emails, or not being on the webinar, or not hearing properly, etc., etc.
I think the marriage thing again. I think there's a nice analogy. You guys have probably heard this one, but the idea of an emotional bank account, right? Because we're not perfect, but if you've got a good emotional bank account with someone, they'll cut you some slack. If that's down to zero, or you're in an overdraft and something goes wrong, that's when it all kicks off, and it's really hard to pull it back, because they don't give you, they're not prepared to give you that slack anymore. So I think that, it's like, I'm just thinking of time here. We're already at first episode. We're already doing extremely well on the time, which I'm not at all surprised. I'm just kind of thinking as we wrap up, that show your franchisees some love, show your franchisor that you appreciate them, right? It's Valentine's Day, so build up that emotional bank account, perhaps. So I don't know what you guys think about that.
Well,
yeah,
I couldn't
absolutely.
agree
I mean,
more.
I think stepping into each other's shoes and seeing it from the other side always helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would absolutely agree with that. The emotional bank account. If, as you quite rightly said, Kevin, if you've got that trust level at a really high level, if something does go wrong, you will be cut some slack. If you're below that threshold, that's just typical. They've done it again. What more could we expect, etc. Because the trust level is gone. Build that trust level up, and every now and again you'll get something wrong, and the franchisees will go, okay, we get it, especially if the communication around what's gone wrong is high level, or or the franchisees have been warned to say, we're going to introduce this, beware that something might not go quite according to plan, but we've got that covered. So when it doesn't go according to plan, the franchisees go, okay, got it. But we could talk about this for a long, long time.
Well, thanks, guys, for joining me. I can't wait till our next one. And if you're watching this, obviously it's our first episode, so feel free to show us some love. Be kind. We'd love your feedback. We'd love your love and adoration, because it's Valentine's Day as well. And hope you enjoyed this episode.